Well, good afternoon again. Thank you again for joining us on SQF for our webinar. My name is Karina Rigo and I am the Customer Service Representative here at SQFI, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Today's comprehensive discussion is on the update to Edition 8, and this will be presented by Bill McBride. Before we start with the presentation, I'd like to take a few minutes to just go over our standard webinar protocol. If you have any questions for the speakers during the presentation, please feel free to write them into the chat box that is located on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll be fielding these over the presentation as they will come in, and they will be answered, then or at the end of the presentation during the Q&A period. And now I'd like to hand over to Bill McBride for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. My name is Bill McBride, and this, as Karina indicated, this is our first learning lunch here in Australia. They've been running successfully in the US for a number of years now. We did have an attempt to run one in Australia earlier this year, and we had problems with the technology. So I apologize for anyone who did register for that. This one is the first learning lunch that's been here in Australia. If it's successful and there's a demand for it or an expectation of it, then we will be running a series of them at least every 2 months next year. This one is on the Edition 8 changes and timing. And it's probably a little bit premature because we're still in the process, but I will give you an indication of where we're up to with the Edition 8 changes and the reasons why the timing has been pushed out a little bit. So just to start off, Karina's already covered a lot of this. The housekeeping items interact with us through the webinar, through the chat box, in the questions and answer box, and I will try and answer as many as we can within our time limit. If you have any technical issues, audio or visual issues, attempt logging into the webinar a second time via the link you received in your registration confirmation email. If not, then we will at least send you a copy of the recording and presentation slides, or at least it will be made available to you if you have registered online. I notice we have somewhere in the region of how many attendees? There's 18. I know there was a lot more registered, so everyone who registered will receive a copy of the presentation. Just for those who don't know me, who I am, I'm the good-looking guy on the right there. The fellow on the left is our boss, Robert Garfield, Bob Garfield to his friends, who is the Vice President at FMI responsible for SQF. I'm based here in Sydney. For those of you who are elsewhere in Australia, I'm based here in Sydney where the weather is about 23, 24, beautiful, sunny today. I also run my own consultancy, but I'm responsible within SQF for the Australia and for the Asia Pacific region, and Karina works with me on the administration side. So the agenda for today is, again, for those who may not be familiar with SQF or just starting out in SQF, a little bit about what is SQF and where the certificates are. We'll then talk a little bit about GFSI and the changing GFSI requirements, because that is part of the reason for the timing of Edition 8 and, in fact, for the reasons for Edition 8. Then we will go through in a little bit more detail the draft Edition 8 update. And I do stress the word draft just now. It's still in draft form, and I'll explain as we go why it is still in draft and what the timing is. And then we'll have some questions and answers following that. I would imagine we take about an hour. I don't think it'll take much longer than that, but we'll see how we go. So firstly, what and where is SQF, for those that may not be familiar? SQF is a food safety management standard and quality management standard that applies to all parts of the food supply chain. It is an accredited standard, so our certification bodies need to be accredited under ISO 17065 for product certification. They also need to be licensed to SQFI. It is benchmarked. SQF is benchmarked by the Global Food Safety Initiative. Apparently, I've just changed them now, the presenter. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor floating around on the screen either. I will try to... someone's saying they're not getting any sound. Shreya is saying they're not getting any sound. Oh, I think you must have sound now. It is owned, as some of you will know, SQF started in Australia many years ago in 1995, but was bought by and started in Western Australia with the Department of Agriculture in Western Australia, or AgWest, which was the commercial division of the Department of Agriculture in Western Australia. And it was largely for small producers, primary producers initially, but grew into the manufacturing sector and eventually was bought out by the Food Marketing Institute, which is, excuse me, which is a lobby group, a trade marketing group in the US. First published in 1995, we're now obviously up to, or talking about edition 8. So where are we? As of August 2016, this is an indication of where our certified sites are. This is certified sites. Excuse me. If my voice lasts for the whole hour, then I'll be very surprised. So if I go on mute for a minute to take a glass of water, please excuse me. A couple of years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, then the number of certificates in Australia and the US would have been roughly equal. But now Australia is running second, and quite a distant second from the US. US has just under 6,000 certified sites, 5,879, and Australia is running second with 1,298. And generally, because Australia is a fairly mature market, we tend to just vary around that 1,000 or even 900. It's dropped to 900 at different times, up to 1,200 certified sites. Because of the influence in the US and because of the US ownership now, Canada and Mexico are also strong countries for SQF, almost 800 in Canada and 260 in Mexico. Within Asia, Japan is by far our largest country with 330, just over 330 certified sites. And if you look at the others there, the total is 8,700 and basically 8,800 certified sites. If you look at the others, we've got South Korea. New Zealand has only got 25 certificates, India 17, Guatemala 14, and the rest. One of the areas for growth we see within the SQF world is not so much in Australia and New Zealand, although New Zealand is a target, but it's further growth within the US and also growth in the Asian countries. Excuse me, South Korea, Thailand, Taiwan, China, Vietnam are targets for growth. I also want to talk a little bit about the changing GFSI requirements, because SQF, like many of the other food safety management systems, is very much hinged to the GFSI requirements. SQF, along with other standards, are benchmarked to GFSI, and we are currently waiting for the next version of the GFSI requirements document before we can release the next version of our standard. So a little bit again for those that may not be familiar about what is GFSI, the relationship between SQF and GFSI, and the GFSI requirements and what we know is coming in the new GFSI requirements. For those that aren't familiar, GFSI was launched in 2000 following a directive from food business CEOs. It was at the time known as CIES, which is a French acronym, It is now owned by the Consumer Goods Forum based in Paris, but also with offices in Washington and Tokyo. And it was raised at that time by the CEOs of what were then retailers and now retailers and manufacturers about some of the food safety crises that were around. If you remember, in 2000, they had mad cow disease and a number of other food safety events in Europe. They were also concerned about proliferation of individual retailer schemes at the time and the burden on suppliers and producers because of the frequency of the number of retailer schemes and the frequency of audits, and high costs and lack of efficiency as part of that process. GFSI, as I said, is owned by the Consumer Goods Forum, which is independent, parity-based consumer goods network with large manufacturers, food manufacturers or grocery manufacturers and large grocery retailers. Oh, get rid of that. It has over 400 members in 70 countries, employing about 100 million people. With estimated combined sales, that number is actually wrong. It's $2.5 billion in euros in sales. And as far as GFSI is concerned, and our main concern with GFSI is the GFSI guidance document, or what is now called the GFSI requirements document, which sets out the requirements for food safety management schemes and the key elements for the production of food, feed, packaging, storage and distribution, etc. The current version of that is the 6th edition. It's actually 6.2, 6.3. But it's the 6th edition, which all of the existing GFSI benchmark schemes are benchmarked against. It provides guidance to schemes. It sets the scheme management requirements. It defines the technical elements, the food safety management, the HACCP, the GMP, GAP, GRP, GDP elements, and puts in transparent processes for benchmarking. Have I just jumped one? No. SQF has been involved with GFSI from the start. Since its inception in 2000, it was BRC, it was IFS, the International Feature Standards, it was Dutch HACCP and SQF, which were involved right at the start. SQF was one of the 4 original benchmark schemes. Eventually, SQF 2000 was benchmarked in 2004, and SQF 1000 was benchmarked in 2005. The major change came with Edition 6, where GFSI really tightened up the requirements so that there was a strict, rigorous benchmarking process. And SQF Edition 6 was approved for recognition, in other words, it was benchmarked to Guidance Document 6 in 2012. And the current version, Edition 7, 7.1, 7.2, remain benchmarked to Guidance Document 6. And of course, we continue to play an active role. Leanne Chuboff, our Senior Technical Director, Bob Garfield himself, John Schultz himself, etc., myself, all play an active role in some of the GFSI working groups. GFSI recognizes different set of industry sectors to SQF. This is based on one of the earlier versions of ISO 22003 and covers everything from feed production, farming of animals, fish, plants, grains and pulses, through to the manufacturing sectors, animal conversion and pre-processing of plant products, and all the manufacturing sectors. And then they've also got requirements for catering, retail, storage and distribution, food packaging, etc. Of the GFSI recognized schemes, this is the current situation as of August 2016. Within the primary production sector, there is Global GAP, Canada GAP, and Primus GFS. The ones that really apply here are in that sector are Global GAP and of course SQF. In manufacturing, the benchmark schemes are BRC, IFS, the International Feature Standards, FSSC 22000, which is growing in popularity, Global Agriculture Alliance, and something called GRMS, which is the Global Red Meat Standard. Of those standards, the only ones that would apply here, or do apply here, apart from SQF, are BRC and FSSC 22000. SQF is positioned at the top there, not necessarily because it's the best, of course, because it is, but also because it straddles both primary production and manufacturing, and it's one of the few GFSI benchmark schemes which does cover both primary production through to manufacturing. So if you look at the GFSI benchmark industry sectors, beg your pardon, in the left-hand column, the existing GFSI benchmark schemes are along the top there, and the ticks indicate the industry sectors that those schemes are benchmarked for. So, for example, BRC is largely in the manufacturing sector, the post-farm gate sector. Canada GAP only covers two, farming of plants and pre-processing of plants. FSSC 22000, again, is largely, in fact, almost entirely post-farm gate. They've also got food packaging in there. The Global GAP has got three industry sectors, although Global GAP arguably has got more certificates than any other scheme. BRC has got more certificates than SQF. But as you move along, SQF covers more of the GFSI industry sectors than any other scheme. The only sectors that we miss out on are farming of fish, which is in agriculture, primarily agriculture, but it's also live catch, and farming of grains and pulses. Which is a little bit of an irony, because I think if you go back to the history of SQF when it first started in Western Australia, it largely started in an area where there was a lot of grain, broadacre grain farming that was covered by SQF certificates. The reason why we don't have those two sectors, by the way, is not because we don't have the codes. We do have the codes existing within the SQF edition 7.2, but we also need 10 certificates within each industry sector to get to GFSI recognition. And at this point in time, we don't have 10 certificates for farming of fish or for farming of grains and pulses. Otherwise, we'd have the, I was going to say a trifecta, but it's not. We'd have the full set. Now, in terms of the status of the GFSI guidance document, requirements document, edition 6 of GFSI was due for replacement in March 2016. So the expectation was that edition 7 was going to be published in March 2016. It's now called the requirements document. Draft was released for public comment in February. Extensive comments came back. There's now been a lot of further discussion. It has been complicated further by the implementation of the Food Safety Modernization Act in the United States, where this GFSI is trying to get some alignment to make sure that the language of the GFSI document is consistent with the requirements of FSMA, not that it completely meets the requirements of FSMA, but is consistent with the language is consistent with the language within FSMA. And the publication is now expected. It's still being worked on. They had another meeting in Minneapolis in the US middle of September. It's still being worked on, but the draft, the final published version is now expected in December 2016. So if you go back up to the top there, in March 2016, that was the expected launch date. And that is why we indicated that edition 8 of the SQF code would be launched in the middle of 2016, because our expectation was that we would have the GFSI document available. We're now looking at launching edition 8 of the SQF code after publication of the GFSI requirements document in December 2016. The reason for that is that we don't want to have to issue it twice. And we have to get all the schemes that I indicated before, need to be re-benchmarked to the new GFSI requirements document after its publication. So we need to wait until that document is published before we publish edition 8 of the SQF code. So that's delayed the SQF code. We don't know what all the requirements are. We know some of the change requirements in GFSI requirements document. What we do know that there is going to be a requirement for all the benchmark schemes to have a food fraud vulnerability assessment and a food fraud mitigation plan. So again, don't quote me on all the detail here. It's only in draft form. It's yet to be published, and it may change before it is published. But the draft requirements document now indicates this wording: food fraud vulnerability assessment standards shall require that the organization have a documented food fraud vulnerability assessment procedure in place to identify potential vulnerability and prioritize food fraud mitigation measures. And a plan, the standards shall require that the organization have a documented plan in place that specifies the measures the organization has implemented to mitigate the public health risks from the identified food fraud vulnerabilities. The plan shall cover the relevant GFSI scope and shall be supported by the organization's food safety management system. Now, that is the expected wording in the GFSI requirements document. It is not the exact wording that will be in the SQF code edition 8. But it will be a requirement for all GFSI benchmark schemes to include food fraud vulnerability assessment and a food fraud mitigation plan in the next version of their documents. In our case, in the case of SQF, that is edition 8. So let me tell you where we're up to with edition 8. With that background, some discussion on the public consultation we've had on the proposed food sector category changes. FSC is food sector categories. A change in the proposed structure. Some of the key technical changes, not all the technical changes, and the timing. But I do need to preface my discussion on this with this caveat. It is only in draft form at this stage. It still has to be reviewed by the Technical Advisory Committee. It still has to go out for public comment. And our expectation, and I'll just give you some preliminary here on the timing, our expectation is that it will not be launched until the 1st of January 2017 because of the issues that I mentioned before. That's our expectation. So let me just say that this is not set in concrete. It's not set in stone. It's not ready for publication yet. It has to go through a number of those steps first before we can say. But this is our expectation at this point in time. Firstly, we got feedback. We asked for feedback from all our stakeholders last year and the beginning of this year, so 2015 into 2016, on 3 parts. Part A, which is the guidance on the SQF code, the system elements, what is currently Module 2, and the GAP, GMP modules, the prerequisites. So some of the feedback we got, and we had a lot of feedback, this is some of the feedback we got. We needed a better understanding of the suspension protocol, because right now we talk about surveillance audit as part of the suspension protocol, which is not correct. So better define it as a site visit or another term, because suspension protocol is, surveillance audit is otherwise defined. With surveillance audit itself, to evaluate the structure of the surveillance audit to determine if a full SQF system audit it needs to be conducted. We needed to, we were recommended that we added something to the unannounced audits to add an element to management commitment so the auditor can assess the commitment of the unannounced audits to the validity of blackout dates. We currently require our auditors to do that, to check the validity of blackout dates but we don't actually have it in the standard itself in Part B of the code. Change of scope and certification cycle to clarify the process, to require a root cause analysis with all corrective actions was another recommendation. Feedback also on defining how corporate audits are to be completed. As you know, SQF is site and product specific, so it only covers sites that are manufacturing, producing, or handling product. So corporate headquarters are not covered in any of these ISO 17065 schemes, including SQF. But sometimes there are corporate functions that need to be covered off. And how do we conduct corporate audits and include that within the site audits was another recommendation. And also scoring and evaluation of OIPs, which are opportunities for improvement, was another area where it was recommended that we relook at whether we should score and include opportunities for improvement. Some of the feedback we had on Module 2, revise the Level 3 elements and requirements and provide this as a standalone quality audit. And I'll come back to that and we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. That was one of the recommendations. Review the tech, and by the way, let me just also point out that quality audits apply at Level 3, as you know. Level 2 is HACCP for food safety. Level 3 is HACCP for quality. So Level 3 is currently the quality audit. In this part of the world, in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, where we have a number of certificates, over 95% of our certificates are Level 3 certificates. Whereas in North America, in the US, Canada, Mexico, etc., it's under 50% are Level 3. So there is a difference there, and some of that push for separating out the quality audit has come from that area. But I'll discuss what we're looking at doing with that shortly. Review the technical elements for any changes, clarifications, or modifications. That is what we've done, including stronger approved supply requirements, stronger allergen management requirements, including labeling, environmental monitoring to be, well, it says here added to Module 11. What we have in fact decided to do is take it out of Module 11 and put it in Module 2. Address HACCP versus PCQI. Again, this is a US recommendation. How HACCP relates to PCQI, which is the process control quality inspection rules from FSMA. We have done that. We're not intending to include FSMA within the SQF code because it is international. We will be still requiring Codex HACCP, but what we've done is come up with a Q&A, an FAQ, to look at how Codex HACCP relates to the FSMA requirements. Food defense include additional requirements such as food fraud vulnerability assessments and clarify HACCP and internal auditor training. And also, obviously, the recommendation was the inclusion of any other GFSI requirements like food fraud. With GMP, the GAP, GMP, GDP modules, develop working groups to review the modules, the food sector categories. We've done that with some. We've done it with storage and distribution. We've done it with primary production. We are still in the process of doing it with packaging and some of the other industry sectors. And also to add food retailing and wholesale in modules 2 and 15 as a separate code. That was again one of the recommendations, and we've had an independent group working on a retail and wholesale code over the duration. So that was the recommendations we've got. And this is where we are currently up to. If I can get it to move on. Yes. These are the proposed changes to the food sector categories. As you know, we've got somewhere in the region of 35 food sector categories. Some of them will there's no change. Some of them we've decided to change. Currently, apiculture, or the raising of bees, is included with the harvesting and capture and harvesting of livestock and game animals. We've decided to take the raising of bees out of that food sector category and include it with food sector category 11, which is honey processing. Food sector category 2 currently covers the growing of animal feed. We've taken animal feed out of here and we've put it with food sector category 5, which is the broadacre crops. And this food sector category will be nominated for the growing and harvesting of sprouted seed crops for human consumption. So things like alfalfa, mung beans, etc., will be included with it, will be part of food sector category 2. Food sector category 3 remains unchanged except for the addition of raw nuts. So it'll be fresh produce and nuts. And food sector category 4, which is currently fresh produce packing operations, will include nut packaging operations, cleaning and shelving. Food sector category 5 already mentioned. 6 and 9 it's just a really grammar change. We changed fish to cover all seafood. 7 and 8 there's no change in. Dairy food processing is really just a change in the way we've structured the appendix. We've taken the reference to milk substitutes and instant formula out of the description, but included them in the examples. 11, as I said, was currently honey processing and now covers apiculture as well. There was a recommendation actually that we take out food sector category 11, but we do have a number of clients that are certified to this category, and we do feel that it's a specialist area and should have its own food sector category. 12 and 13, there's no change. 14, which is fruit, vegetable, and nut processing now, and we've also included fruit juices within food sector category 14. And so fruit juices, including pasteurized fruit, well, in fact, we've removed pasteurization from food sector category 15. We've kept canning, UHT in high temperature, high pressure operations in food sector category 15, but we removed pasteurization for dairy and fruit juice and put under their specific food sector category. Confectionery remains unchanged. Preserved foods now includes peanut butter as well as the other products. And, oh, beg your pardon, I missed 16. 16 will only be liquid iced drink and beverages, including alcohol. But products such as dry tea and coffee have been taken out of 16 and put into 19. Confectionery, no change. Preserved foods, as indicated, we've included peanut butter, and food sector category 19 now includes dry tea and coffee products. Food sector category 20, recipe meals manufacture, includes sandwiches, wraps, and high-risk desserts for distribution. In other words, where sandwiches, wraps, and desserts are made elsewhere for distribution to food service, they're included in 20. No change in 21. No change in 22 apart from the removal of nuts. Food catering and food service operations, we've just included the term on-site, so it only covers products that are manufactured or compiled on-site. Food retailing is only for products that are sold in retail, so if retailers are also preparing food on-site, they would need to include food sector category 23, which is food service operations. 25 is a new category. It's repackaging of products not manufactured on site. It's 25 was warehousing. we've now combined both warehousing 25 and 26 into 26. And 25 is now being used for things like gift baskets and presentation packs, which are compiled by, and we do, believe it or not, have a number of clients that this covers. So it's the gift baskets, fruit baskets, candies, etc., that are combined, that are not produced on site, but are combined on a particular SQF certified site. As I said, food storage and distribution for both fresh and ambient is now all under one, 26. 27 is still food packaging materials. 28, 29, and 30 have been taken out completely. We won't use them anymore. No change in 31 or 32. 33 is currently manufacture of food processing aids and agricultural chemicals. We've taken out reference to agricultural chemicals. It is only for food processing aids. No change in 34. And the recommendation, and it's only a recommendation at this stage, is that food sector category 35 be removed for brokers and agents, because basically it is not working for us, and really it's not working for the brokers or the certification bodies either. So the proposed structure of Edition 8. Right now, left-hand column there, you've got the SQF code, edition 7.2. Everything is in the one document. The intention is that we split that out into a separate level 1 document, which we'll call SQF Food Safety Fundamentals, and then separate level 2 documents. We won't call it level 1, level 2, level 3, but separate level 2 documents, which we'll call SQF Food Safety Codes. So there'll be one for primary production, there'll be one for food manufacturing, excuse me, there'll be one for storage and distribution, there'll be one for food packaging, and there'll be one for retail. There'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate documents. Now, there'll be separate Part A's, because the Part A's will be customized for those industry sectors. There will be separate system elements. We've currently been working on the system elements for primary and for manufacturing, and although they're similar, they're not completely the same. So they will be customized for those industry sectors. Within the food sector, the food safety codes as well, we'll still have the GAP modules for primary and the GMP modules for manufacturing, etc. And then there will be a separate quality code, SQF quality code. Again, these are recommended. By the way, don't worry about the design of the codes. Right now, we've just kept the old design, but there will be another group looking at designing the codes so they look different, as well as just have different content. And the SQF quality code will be, as I indicated, a separate document. It won't be called Level 3. It'll be called the quality code. So let's just go through some of those and look at the intended structure. The SQF Food Safety Fundamentals, which is currently Level 1, we will have a separate Part A. Now, at this stage, we're saying there may not be any scoring, there may not be any rating within Food Safety Fundamentals, because again, it's only for businesses that are not looking for not looking for GFSI recognition, are developing or starting out, and we want to encourage rather than rate them or score them. It covers only GAP, GMP, or GDP requirements and basic food safety elements. The applicable GAP and GMP modules that are associated with this will still be modules 3 to 12. There currently isn't in Level 1, and there won't be in Food Safety Fundamentals a requirement for HACCP, and it will not be GFSI benchmarked. Now, right now, we don't have a lot of Level 1 certificates. We are hoping to promote this as an opportunity for businesses that are starting out, or for small or developing businesses, or businesses in developing countries. So we're hoping to promote that as a starting point to get to full food safety certification, but the intent now is to have it as a separate document. Food Safety Code for Primary Production will have a separate Part A again. We'll have a customized Part A. It will be one of the codes that will be submitted to GFSI Edition 7 for benchmarking, and it will cover food sector categories 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, which is the production, capture, and harvesting of livestock, growing and harvesting of sprouted seed crops, growing and production of fresh produce, broadacre crops, and the harvest and intensive farming of fish. Now you'll notice in the right-hand column there, Module 5, 7, 8, 6, and 8 still apply, but we're now calling them GAP for farming of animal products, GAP for farming of fruit and vegetables, GAP for farming of grains and pulses, etc. So that it will be an independent document, the Food Safety Code for Primary Production. Food Safety Code for Manufacturing, again, will have its own Part A, which is very similar to the existing Part A we've got in 7.2. It will cover produce pack houses, animal slaughtering, all food manufacturing, and the manufacturing of animal feed and pet food. It'll cover food sector category 4, 7 to 22, 25, 31 to 34. The applicable GM modules will be 9, 10, and 11. 11 is the one that's most commonly used just now, and it will be submitted to GFSI Edition 7 for benchmarking. The Food Safety Code, SQF Food Safety Code for Storage and Distribution, again, will have its own customized independent Part A. And the Part A's within primary manufacturing and distribution will be largely the same, just customized slightly for those industry sectors. It'll cover the system elements and good distribution practices for transport, storage, and distribution of perishable and non-perishable food and feed products. The applicable good distribution practice module is Module 12, which is the same module that we currently have for storage and distribution, and it will also be submitted to GFSI for benchmarking. Food Safety Code for Manufacture of Food Packaging is still in a work in progress. It will cover the system elements and good manufacturing practices for the manufacture of food packaging. It will include items, the things that we are changing, by the way, in food packaging is it will include items used in food manufacturing or food service facilities, for example, paper towel, napkins, disposable fruit containers, straws, stirrers, anything that comes into contact in food manufacturing or food service with food contact surfaces or with food. And the applicable, shouldn't be GDP, it should be GMP module, apologize for that, is Module 13, which is the same one as it is now. And then the SQF Food Safety Code for Retail, it's actually retail and wholesale, is a new standard. It has been written for us by a separate retail group. System elements are very different from the other food safety codes, and it covers the system elements, good retail practices for retail, wholesale, and grocery. It includes the GRP module 15, and it covers food sector category 24. So these are all the food sector category, the food safety codes. The SQF quality code, which is what was formerly level 3, is a separate code that can either be audited in association with the food safety code or can be done independently. The sites that are applying for recognition to the SQF quality code will need to be already certified to the SQF food safety code. And it can be audited, as I indicated, as an extension to the food safety audit or standalone. The quality audit component will not be scored or rated. it will just be on the number of and the level of non-conformances. So it will not be part of the overall, what is currently a level 3 score and rating. Only the food safety code will be scored and rated. And the outcomes of the quality audit will not affect the score or rating of the food safety audit. So again, if I can just go back and say that the system elements for the quality codes are based on, right now they basically duplicate what's in level 2. But we're reinforcing the system elements in the food safety code. The elements in the quality code are based on that. We've tried not to duplicate what is currently in the food safety code. The quality audit can be done in association with the food safety audit or can be done independently. That's a choice that is up to the supplier and the certification body, up to the site and the certification body. So that's the intention, but again, we still have some way to go before we sign off on the quality code. The quality team that is reviewing this will be meeting again next week, and then we will have the Technical Advisory Council meeting just before the SQF conference at the end of this month. So some of the key technical changes we're looking at with Edition 8 is separation of the quality requirements from food safety. That's what I've just been discussing, is the quality requirements can be done in conjunction, in association, or can be a separate standalone audit. That is up to the supplier and the certification body, but the quality elements are separated from the food safety elements and clearly identified. More of an emphasis on senior management. We're looking at a food safety communication plan and monthly meetings between senior management and SQF practitioner in the food safety codes. Environmental monitoring program now required for all manufacturing facilities. A stronger approved supplier programs. Provisions for supplier audits, not mandatory supplier audits, but provisions for supplier audits where required. Recognition of corporate suppliers, in other words, corporate entities that may have some involvement in the approved supplier program, the customer complaint program, etc. We're including within Part A of both the primary and the manufacturing codes a requirement, an option for certification bodies to audit the corporate head office as before they audit the individual sites that are tied to that head office. New food fraud requirements, vulnerability assessment, mitigation plan included. More emphasis on identity preserved foods and clear distinction between identity preservation for food safety requirements versus quality requirements. Clear allergen management requirements, and then also additional storage and transportation requirements. That page doesn't nearly cover all the technical changes we've made. As soon as it has been finalized, there will be a full list of the changes between Edition 7 and Edition 8. So the timing, the expected timing just now is, and with the caveat that's indicated at the bottom there, factors such as the time of publication of the GFSI benchmarking requirements document and public and SQFI committee feedback may alter the release date of Edition 8. In particular, the publication of the GFSI requirements document, because we will not publish Edition 8 until we have had an opportunity to see the final published GFSI document and reviewed it to make sure that we are fully covered. And that's the pure reason for that is we don't want to have Edition 8.1 coming out a couple of months after Edition 8. Regardless of the release date, SQFI will always provide suppliers a minimum of 6 months to implement. So our expected timing just now is that in October, in this month, October 24, there will be a review of all the changes to Edition 8 by the Technical Advisory Committee. That is the week of the SQF conference in Orlando, in Florida. They'll be meeting that week. They'll have a chance to review the documents before then. November 15, we'll obviously make changes to the documents based on the TAC feedback. November 15, we expect to publish Edition 8 for public comment. So it'll be placed on the SQF website for public comment. And all SQF stakeholders will be advised of that, and we will accept those comments. It'll probably be, and don't again quote me on this, it'll either be probably 3 weeks for public comment. By December 31st, we expect to publish the final edition of Edition 8. And then July 1st, 2017, we expect to implement Edition 8. So all audits, initial audits, recertification audits after July 1st will be are expected to be in Edition 8 after July 1st. So, questions. I know there are probably many questions there, not all of them I can answer, but if anyone has got any questions on there, then please speak now or forever hold your peace. Do we have any questions? There's a question there, we import and redistribute by engaging co-manufacturer, co-packers. In the existing SQF code, 7.2, a broker by definition is a single desk agency that doesn't cite or control the product in any way. That is the category that we're getting rid of. But any brokers or agents who handle products, repack products, store products, are responsible for transporting products will come under the existing food sector categories. It will either be for storage and distribution or for manufacturing. Someone, Cecil Fernando, asked for the slides. You will get the slides. We pack frozen packs into a multi-pack for retailers. If that's all you do, that is still going to come under manufacturing. If all you do is pack frozen packs into multi-pack for retail, then you will still come under the manufacturing FSC, which is, if I can find it, off the top of my head. You should currently be under fruit and vegetable processing, and you should still be under fruit and vegetable processing. The next question is guidance documents. I think, Fiona, which is your next question, will be guidance documents issued, for example, rating of non-conformances. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but I mean, because non-conformances are largely left up to the certification body as long as they meet our definition. The definitions for non-conformances within the quality code will change, and there will be some clarity on that. There will be guidance documents issued. All the existing guidance documents will need to be rewritten. I can't give you a timetable on that just now, and obviously there will be further discussions with the certification bodies on how to rate quality non-conformances versus food safety non-conformances. We sell them our frozen products we make on site. Joy, I'm not quite sure what the question is. But to me, it's baked products. It's not vegetables. In which case, again, I don't think your food sector category is going to change. In manufacturing, your food sector categories will not change unless it's pasteurized products, etc. Have the Australian retailers been consulted? Coles have been, this has been discussed with Coles. At least the changes to the system elements have been discussed with Coles. And Coles obviously are also members of the Technical Advisory Council. At this stage, they have not been discussed with Woolworths, but after the meeting at the end of October, they will be discussed further with Coles and also with Woolworths and Aldi. Joy, you've raised a question about OIPs. Now, and again, you know, this is not set in concrete, but our recommendation is that OIPs should not be included within the SQF code edition 8 for either food safety or for quality, because very often they're a fallback where OIPs are raised rather than non-conformances, so that they don't get scored. There's certainly no intention to score OIPs, and the way that the quality code has been drafted just now is we will only have minor and major non-conformances. That's the intent at this point. Yes, this seems to be a two-way discussion between Joy and I. You will still get non-conformances for quality NCRs. So you will still have corrective actions for the quality side, but the non-conformances in the quality code will not be scored. Only non-conformances raised in the food safety audit, or the food safety part of the audit, if you like, will be scored. And the other intended change that I would just mention on closeout of non-conformances is that with both food safety and with quality, our intention is that closeouts for both majors and minors should be 30 days. Right now, majors are 14 days, which is almost impossible. Right now, they're both the majors are 14 days, which is almost impossible. So the intention is, or the recommendation is, that for both majors and minors, that'll be 30 days. There will be no mandatory clauses in the quality code. They'll all be as applicable. There's a question here about timing. If they're by separating safety and quality codes into two documents, if they're both done together, how many days will the audit be? The intent would be that we will have an audit checklist available that combines them both, food safety and quality code. Although as separate documents, and quality can be a separate audit. The intention would be that, and in the case of the Australian suppliers, most suppliers would want them combined as a combined audit. So the intention will be to have a combined checklist, and we do not expect, where the quality audit is an extension of the food safety audit, we do not expect to see that taking any longer than it currently does. If the quality audit is standalone, in other words, if you have the food safety audit at one time, then the quality audit at another time, then yes, there is going to be an extension in the time. But if they're done concurrently, we don't expect that to be an extension in time. Any more questions? Will you still get a car? Well, I think I've answered that. Will you still get a car under the quality code? You will still get non-conformances under the quality code. Right now, we're saying, right now we're looking at the situation of how many major non-conformances makes a fail for the quality audit. The other thing you do need to bear in mind is, as I said before, if you do want to have the quality and food safety separated, you must retain your certification to the food safety code to be audited to the quality code. So if you do want them separated, you must maintain the food safety code to become certified to the quality code. And we're also looking, by the way, at a separate certificate for the quality code as against the food safety code. Just looking to, Once this is all decided, will there be another webinar to Clark? Most definitely, and I would think there will be a number of webinars and longer webinars over the first. If we stick to the publication on the 1st of January, implementation on the 1st of July, and that as well is not locked in concrete yet because we do need to see the GFSI guidance document. But if we stick to the 1st January, 1st July dates, there will be a number of meetings, webinars, certification body meetings, professional updates for auditors over the first 6 months of next year to make sure that everything is clarified. As part of this as well, we obviously need to update our professional update training, our implementation training, and our auditor training as a result of it. Existing auditors will obviously be grandfathered across, but the professional update next year will be, I would think, in a little bit more detail than it has been up till now. So, do we have any other questions? If we don't, and by the way, you are the first ones. There's how many? 19 on the line. You are the first ones to see this. Apart from the team that we've got looking at the quality code, who have seen part of this, have seen the quality requirements. You're the first ones to see this presentation. I would encourage you, and in fact implore you, once the drafts come out for public consultation in November, and you will be notified of that you have a look and you make whatever comments you want on that, because we do look at all the comments, we respond, and we update the drafts accordingly. We've got a lot of work to do over October, November, December, but we do look at the input from all stakeholders and generally respond to all stakeholders. So please review the public comments when they come out in November. Okay, I think Korea, we might be all done. I don't see any more. Comments. So thank you for your time. You will, as I said, get a copy of this, and thank you for attending and participating in the first Australian Learning Lunch. I hope there'll be many more. So we'll sign off now.